Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of Xaereth Prevails, a Grand Arena story. Whew, I've got a crazy one for you guys today. It is seriously one of the most intense matches that I've played in a very long time, so I'm excited to show you guys that. But first, I want to throw a huge shout out to my patrons. Thank you guys so much for supporting me. You guys are awesome and deserve every good thing, or at least most good things. Now, before we jump into the 10th episode, I wanted to give a quick recap of what happened in the 9th episode, just because a lot of people have been asking, and, frankly, I like to show every single match that I play, even if I lose, and that's exactly what happened. In my last match, I did lose to a really skilled player. We both placed some good defenses, and unfortunately I probably placed too good of defenses because I just couldn't get through his Jedi Revan. My Commander Luke couldn't beat it, my Padme couldn't beat it, and my Geonosians couldn't beat it, so I was just stalled out. My opponent couldn't clear my Darth Revan, and he ended up beating me by one zone, and that was really unfortunate, really frustrating, and I still would have showed you guys that. I've shown you guys all of my other losses. The problem was my phone just chose that time not to record anything. I think it was a memory issue. I didn't have enough space, so that didn't work out, and it was a combination of bad RNG and just honestly sketchy decision making on my end, and I don't really think you guys missed that much. I like to think of it as I played so poorly that God took it upon himself to remove that footage from ever being seen by the human eye. Humanity wasn't ready for that footage yet. So anyways, I did lose. Unfortunate. I lost my winning streak. I wanted to go undefeated. Obviously not going to happen, but it's time to move on to the next match. The real question is, will I still make Kyber? Go on and answer that question in your minds right now.
I find your lack of faith disturbing.
I mean, honestly, guys, how dare you? Anyways, we're in Group 4, our final group, and it is a cutthroat group. Everyone has made a rhodium already, so that's pretty cool. It's going to be do or die here, though, guys. We have to make at least 2 wins in this group in order to make Kyber, and potentially we have to win all 3. It's really, really exclusive this time. Taking a look at the stats, my opponent does have more high-end relics than I do, but not by too much. It's a pretty even match as far as that's concerned. I have more tier 3, I guess. I don't know if you can consider that an advantage or not, to be honest. I do have 7 more Zetas, which isn't that big of a deal. My opponent does beat me on mods, at least on the lower end. We're really close on mods as well, though. I do have a distinct advantage on the really fast end of the mods, which is great, wonderful to have. And looking at our total success in Grand Arena, it looks like I've won more matches than my opponent, but he has won a ton of his matches, and he's full cleared almost as much as I have. So, absolutely still a threat.
They're more dangerous than you realize.
So I did spend a lot of time researching what my opponent was going to take or had taken in the past on defense and planning for that contingency. And they did place the exact same team as they had placed in the last, basically 9 rounds. So, I was fairly confident and knew what was going to be in the back zones. I just needed to execute at this point. I will say, just as a little bit of foreshadowing, that I chose very poorly on a lot of the defensive and offensive teams that I was going to take. But at the start of this match, I was extremely confident in my decision making. So there is that, I suppose.
You don't know how hard I found it signing the order to terminate your life.
So the first thing I wanted to do was take out this Night Sisters team. There wasn't necessarily going to be a great target for my Imperial troopers in the later zones as far as I could tell, and honestly these Night Sisters were not fast enough to really threaten my Imperial troopers, or so I thought. They're also not very well geared. They're only gear 12, and so I wanted to be able to take them out. Now one hitch that kind of threw me was their zombie was way faster than I never look at zombie speeds. Usually the other Night Sisters are faster, but zombie was in this case faster, so she actually got a turn after one of my troopers, which is crazy. She must have been insanely fast. That being said, I was able to just just kill her again, and, get turn meter that way. Saj did get a hit on my range trooper, and I was hoping that I'd be able to regenerate it in time, but I failed to do anything of the sort, so ended up with 59 banners here as soon as the numbers load, which is frustrating, to say the least, but I'm going to make you guys endure it just like I did. So 59 banners. I know that recently I said that I only ever get 60 or I fail with troopers, and then I've gotten like 3 matches in a row that weren't 60 but weren't fails, so there is that. Anyways, one of my game plans going into this match was my opponent had a really high relic, really dangerous General Grievous squad, and after being so impressed with my opponent's Jedi Revan team, I decided to leave my Jedi Revan on defense and instead take Darth Revan here instead. And Darth Revan was specifically going to be targeting this Grievous squad. And you have to be pretty confident in your picks to be able to just choose to believe what's going to be in the back zone. But I was frankly, I felt like I knew exactly what was going to be in the back zone, felt like I had a good read on my opponent, and so I just went with it. And so what we're doing here, Watt is with this General Grievous squad. He put the taunting tech onto B2. I was able to get fear off on Grievous, so then when Grievous was going to take a turn, he couldn't because he was feared, and I was eventually able to knock B2's health down to below 50%, and once I killed him, or once I did that, it was death mark on General Grievous, and he's easy to kill at that point. Now, you may have noted previously, or rather earlier, that I was hesitating whether to take Marauder or not. Like I could have probably done without taking him. I just wanted that insurance, and you'll see later in this episode, like I will live to regret that. I'm apparently foreshadowing all the things today. It's not even National Foreshadowing Day, if that exists, but it seems like it should. Or at least, like the hint of it should exist. So, anyways, I was able to get the win pretty decisively and easily. It's important in this match to get as many banners as you can. And, we're looking for over 55, so 56 was within the acceptable range. And now we get to see what's in the back zone, see if my blind trust in my opponent's defenses setting was warranted, and it was. This is exactly the same team as had been in the back a long time before. And one really nice thing about the Grand Arena history is you can see when your opponent attacked, and they always attack within the same window, or this opponent did. So I just decided to pause and wait, and they did clear my first 3 zones really efficiently, and I was really hoping that Rey would take some banners away from my opponent, and I guess we'll see what the results of that hope was.
No, Alderaan is peace, but we have no weapons. You can't
You will
possibly...
prefer another.
And that, as they say, is that. My opponent completely obliterated my defenses, 1903 for the full clear, one-shot all of my teams, and I was left in a really bad spot here. If you do the quick math here, I need to clear every team with an average of 58 or higher. It needs to be higher if I want to win outright. A draw would get me 58 exactly, and anything less than that would get me a loss, and that's going to be really hard because of the teams that I brought for offense. The thing is, I was confident that I would be able to full clear my opponent with no problems. The one issue that I had was I needed to be efficient, and none of my teams are particularly efficient except for Commander Luke and First Order. Look, I have Emperor Palpatine, who has trouble regenerating protection, Night Sisters, who can't regenerate protection, Traya, who can't regenerate protection, Padme, who can't regenerate protection, and I needed to average 58 or more than that to be able to do any of that. So I decided I would use my Traya team. This took a really long time to decide. I decided to use my Traya team undersized against Geonosians because I had a limited number of teams that could actually counter that squad. And then I decided to use Commander Luke undersized because I had a limited number of teams that could actually counter bounty hunters with a really fast nest. And Commander Luke can do that in the right circumstance if you play it right. So we need to get through those that zone first. We can hold off on our decision for Qi'ra and Newt for a little bit, and let's just see what happens with these next two battles here. Alright, so the name of the game here is Undersized Squads. That is going to be my focus for the rest of the match. I have to be as laser focused as possible, because otherwise I will just lose outright. And that's a great way. If you can undersize and still win, it's great, because you're going to be able to not only get a couple extra banners if you get max protection and health, but you're also mitigating. Like, if I have two other Sith here, odds are they're both going to get hit at some point, and that'll alleviate some of the pressure of winning. Like, we'll probably just end up being able to win, but at the same time, those guys are going to cost us 2 banners. If we don't take them, then those guys who aren't there aren't costing us banners. So we're not going necessarily for a 62 here. I know that's not possible, really, but the hope is to at least get close to that, something approaching 62. And you can see the Sith troopers just being targeted. One thing I want to point out is my opponent did make this a little bit easier on me. They're all gear 12 geos, so that makes them easier. But then also the Brood Alpha is slower than Traya was. My Traya is not super fast, so the Brood Alpha couldn't go first, and so I was able to get Isolate off on the Brute right away, which meant that I'd just be able to basically take them all out fairly easily without having to worry about his taunt, and he hits kind of hard as well, so just kind of a nice double there. So Sith Trooper did die, but I still got 58 banners because we started with a maximum of 62. So we lost protection on one of our characters, and we lost 3 from Sith Trooper. 58 is great though, perfect result. I took a very long time planning this bounty hunter team with Commander Luke and company. I decided not to take 3PO because he could potentially just get Nest into a stun lock that I would just time out against, frankly, eventually. You want to stun Bosk first so he can't taunt. He was really, really fast. But you get the first turn with Han, so that was great. And then just a freeze frame for just a sec. I'm doing my stance change with Commander Luke here so that Chewie is going to assist and take some of her protection off. She's not going to be able to regenerate her protection, but then once she finally takes a turn, that damage is going to stick, and then we can actually do a killing blow on her, hopefully. So, after that, we want to take out Jango, because if he does his Flamer move, then we can't gain bonus turn meter, and that's frustrating. Now, I did try to stun Nest there because she has tenacity down. I apparently failed to do that though, and now Nest is actually available to hurt, so we're gonna wait until we have a character who can actually one-shot her, basically. So Han is the great candidate for that, and now we're just hoping that Chewie can finish one of these guys off and regain some protection. Apparently one of my characters did finish with enough protection to count, so 60 banners for that zone, and now I've averaged 59, so I'm a little bit ahead on this zone. And happily, my opponent did put the exact same defense as previously, the one that I was counting on in the back, so we have that going for us as well.
I got him! Great kill! Don't get cocky!
So now we needed to find a use for all of my remaining teams and try to be as efficient as possible. My Emperor Palpatine team especially was worrisome. I needed to find a team that he could take out. I needed to. So, the other problem is what can I do with Night Sisters? They can probably beat all of these teams, except for maybe I was a little bit sketchy about the First Order squad, so I didn't want to do that. I had saved Nihilus, so I decided the Qi'ra team doesn't do any damage, hardly at all, and I could use Thrawn with that team to be able to combine with Nihilus. Nihilus could just kill the whole team over time, and Thrawn could be healing all of their protection over time as well. And then my Night Sisters, I had a plan with them, and I'll explain that when we get into it. On that left, my Padme team and First Order. Now, their First Order squad was actually faster than mine. My First Order officer could have gone first, but Hux is going to deny any of his turn meter shenanigans, and if I put my own Hux in there instead of First Order Officer, his squad would almost universally or unilaterally outspeed mine, and I didn't want my Kylo Ren to be stunned, which would have happened. So decided to go with First Order against the Maul team, which is just fine. And that meant Padme was going to face the First Order team, hopefully undersized, but the First Order team did have a Relic 7 Kylo, so that was going to be interesting. First, though, I wanted to take my Night Sisters against this Newt team, and my idea was, okay, so this Newt team doesn't do any AoEs except for Zalbar, so if I could just keep him stun-locked, and you can see I'm taking Talzin as lead instead of Asajj, for the extra potency, if I can just keep him stun-locked, then they'll just shoot Zombie, and Zombie will lose protection, but otherwise the rest of my team would remain unscathed. So, that was the plan at least. I was going to save Asajj's Dispel for just the moment after Dooku put on his Mass Stealth, and that worked out exactly as I wanted it to. Unfortunately, Droideka still has his invulnerable buff, so now we're just trying to take out Dooku here because we don't want to get stun-locked. Now, one hitch to my plans here, though, was the fact that Extortion from Newt was on Zombie, and it looked like it took a little bit of protection off of my whole team when it was applied anyways, but it's on Zombie, and Zombie was ability blocked, and so I couldn't pay my Extortion, which meant that when Zombie went, then the Extortion was available for Newt to put on someone else, and the Extortion denied the taunting buff from Zombie, which meant that anyone could be targeted, and soon thereafter Spirit was, and really the whole team started being targeted, and my whole plan just basically went to hell. So I needed to make sure that I won this match, but I was not going to get anything more than 55 banners, which is problematic to say the least. We've already dropped a couple of them. We can't afford to drop 5 here. That is not really acceptable, but it's also not acceptable to just give up on this match, frankly. So we're just going to keep going, and this isn't going to be a challenge for Night Sisters. I kind of wished at this point that they had chosen basically any of the other squads remaining, because they could have beaten any of those squads. I just didn't want to lose my protection, but as it was 55, you can see I clicked out of that really fast because I was annoyed and I didn't want to look at that score. Didn't need it taunting me, and we can just move on. We're at this point, if we drop 5 more banners, it's a tie, and anything more is going to be a loss. So, dropping 5 banners against these 3 last teams, they're all good teams at stealing banners, and I need this to work as flawlessly as possible. I took Emperor Palpatine here with Thrawn and Nihilus, and then I decided at the last minute I wanted to add Vader, because Vader applies so many debuffs that he's going to give me a lot of extra turn meter. And there was definitely some inherent risk involved. I didn't want to lose any banners, and my maximum threshold of banners now is only 61. I can only get 61 at max, and that's also a little bit worrisome. But as it stood, I could just see these the 3 characters here without Vader just kind of being pummeled to the point that they wouldn't be able to heal any protection anyways. So the other thing about Vader here is he also applies ability block, which is also a pretty big deal against these taunting tanks. So we're just kind of biding our time. We want to take out Vander Chewbacca first because he's the one who can passively revive characters, and we don't want to necessarily have to rely on Nihilus to annihilate all 5 of them. We might not have time for that. One thing that you'll start to see as we progress through this match is, as I have more turns with Thrawn, I don't always fracture someone. It's great to prevent these different moves and buffs, and the taunts are obviously really frustrating, but he's more important as a healer at this point. So I thought about taking out L3 there for a minute, or Stormtrooper Han. What I decided, though, was to take out Qi'ra And that might seem kind of foolish, like she doesn't pose much threat, but she does pose a threat to my banners. You have to protect your banners. You know, that's the whole thing about this match. I need as many banners as I can, and she's the only one here with an AoE. She's the only one who could credibly just tank all 4 banners from protection away from me at the last minute. And we just want to stop her from doing that as soon as we possibly can. You know, L3 has individual targeting, so does Stormtrooper Han, but neither of them does much damage at all on their hits. So, you know, what we're trying to do here is just manage the damage as much as possible. Now, one thing that a lot of people will note in this video, and you know, it's true, Nihilus and Vader and Palp at this point, Palp is healed now, they all have a little bit of protection missing, but you can be missing a tiny bit of protection and still get the max banners. So I did get 61, and that was a huge moment for me, because after the fiasco with Night Sisters, I really needed to recoup a little bit of a few of my losses. So I was actually still on track to being able to, you know, as long as I could get 58 on my last 2 attacks, then I'd probably be able to take the win here. You know, I have Padme against this Kylo Ren team, and you know, I have the First Order against this Maul team, which also incidentally has a Relic 7 Sith Marauder, which is an issue, as you'll see in a little bit. Foreshadowing. Ooh. However, before our fateful match with First Order and Maul, we are going to use Padme 3-man against this Relic 7 Kylo Ren unmasked with Hux.
I'm taking an awful risk, Vader. This had better work.
Alright, so we've got Padme and Kenobi and Skywalker, and hopefully that's the recipe for success here. That was the hope anyways going into it. Now, one thing that makes Padme okay against this First Order team is, you know, Hux denies me bonus turn meter, but I never gain bonus turn meter at any point anyways. Padme's leadership says no to that, so we're not gaining bonus turn meter, and that's probably fine. You know, what we're trying to do here is just weather the storm. My Padme is actually slow Padme to be able to counter a Darth Revan team if I ever encounter one, and you know, that works pretty well, but it works a lot better if we can just use, if we could be faster against all these other teams, which we have to choose. That's fine. Now we're just picking off the easier characters here. The First Order Executioner is the one that's going to cause me the most damage, and he's easy to kill because he can be affected by courage, so we take him out. First Order Stormtrooper, I wanted to wait for one big hit from him. And now, the thing that I'm really counting on against Kylo Ren is Jedi Anakin's health block, or rather healing immunity. And you know, that's important because Kylo Ren regenerates an insane amount of health and protection. Every time you hit him, he's regaining 8% of his health every single time from every hit. On top of that, every time he gains a debuff or has a status effect change or gets a buff, he is also gaining a bunch of health and protection, 5% of both of those. So healing immunity is great. Happily, one of my characters here did not take enough damage to their protection and to actually count as a -1, so getting 60 banners there is wonderful result. And now all I need to do is keep all of my First Order characters alive, and I will be able to win this match by 1 point.
We've analyzed their attack, sir, and there is a danger. Should I have your ship standing by?
Evacuate? In our moment of triumph? I think you overestimate their chances.
Now, moving into this match, First Order are wonderful against Maul teams for the most part. There are a lot of different unknowns in this match, though, you know, and we'll kind of explore those together as we march through this match. But, you know, they're all stealthed and they have evasion, and it can be really frustrating. They can also daze your team, which First Order relies on turn meter manipulation, so that's not necessarily great. I knew moving forward that I needed to keep Marauder stun locked forever if possible. However, one thing that I wasn't really counting on was the fact that Savage could go, and he immediately steals all of the debuffs off of someone, and puts them on himself. And I was just not counting on that at all. And you just don't play against this team enough. It's hard to have a lot of experience. In addition, there's the First Order Red Trooper that I've never faced at any point in any match. Or maybe I have, and he was just, really weak. But one way or another, this team is being a little bit more difficult immediately than I had initially thought was going to happen. And with them popping in and out of stealth all the time and, evading my hits, I could have killed Savage there if I hadn't missed. It's just really hard to take him out. You see, First Order Stormtrooper is in dire straits. I need him to survive to be able to get the, only -5 banners and get the win here. But he's taunting, so they're just going to hit him, and Savage does the deed there, kills him, and, man, that was pretty devastating, because I was 6 banners ahead. I needed to make sure that I had, I needed to make sure that I had only lost 5 banners in this match. And, Marauder is making it really easy to make it so that I'm not, he's just taking out all of my health and protection here. And so, what do you do? He's Relic 7, he's tough to kill. And, we need him to die, obviously, but we also need to get as much health and protection back as possible. So I did get the 2-turn stun on him, which was helpful, and hopefully we're going to be able to find a way to regenerate, but honestly, we just can't. So here I'm just counting all my banners, and I got 54, which is a really interesting result. Because if I'd gotten 55 out of 1 with a 54, I actually tied, and I've never done that at any point until now. So immediately, I wanted to know what the tiebreaker was. I was pretty sure I knew what it was, but my opponent was contradicting that. He thought that it was going to be whoever was on the top of the group was going to win. I thought that it was going to be whoever had the most GP at the start of the match, or when the round started. You can see, though, he's on the top of the group, so he thought he was going to win the tiebreaker, and I thought I was going to win the tiebreaker because you can see my GP is higher than his, my character GP is higher than his. The question was who was right, and we just didn't find a definitive answer until the final buzzer beeped at my 3 o'clock. And when it was time to finally look and find out, I had gotten the tiebreaker. I was right. GP does win the tiebreaker. So wonderful. Sorry to my opponent, who played wonderfully and took advantage of my really misplaced, poor judgment defense. And, first time I got a tie. I guess I can cross that off my bucket list. It was never on there, but I can write it in, I suppose, and then cross it off like some people with lists do. I'll show you guys my horrible defenses here. They're not necessarily awful, but I put a lot of teams on defense that I could have gotten max banners against this defense with, and in my opinion, that was a really poor choice. Jedi Training Rey and Jedi Revan would have been great to have on offense, and getting max banners, that would have absolutely been possible, but I clearly did not do that, and instead put my trust in Night Sisters for the first time ever, and that was a fail. So one thing I do want to point out here, though, and it's an actually non-trivial matter, is there's this feat that I only had this one time to try to get, and it's the Dark Lords or Sith Lords feat, and you have to use 5 Sith Lords to be able to and get a win in Grand Arena. You can only do it for this one match, and in the end, I was trying all these different things. I'm like, okay, Traya could absolutely win her match with Geonosians, but I didn't want to lose all those banners. I wanted to get an undersized win so that I would be able to recoup some of my banner loss. And in the end, I don't regret it. Like, I wanted to go for the win here, not for, 90 banners on the feet. So, I will do that, make that decision every single time, I think. I hope I will. If I don't slap me. I was going to say you can, but you can't. So don't think about it. And, I think it's good business to do that. Unfortunate, though, that I dropped 90 banners here. I did get the win here, though, and that is what's important, I suppose. Getting the win is wonderful. One thing I wanted to ask you guys, and you can tell me in the comments, is what do you think I should do for my total win-loss record? Should I add a tie column? Should I just call this a win, and if I get future ties where I lose, just call it a loss? Or what do you guys think? I'm curious. I don't know if I'll necessarily take you guys' advice on it. I'm not sure, but that is something I'm considering. Just for my overall record. So let me know what you think. And otherwise, we have 2 matches left, and I need to full clear both of those matches and win one of them in order to make Kyber. That is what we have to do to get there. So, going to be an interesting next couple rounds. My next opponent has more lifetime banners than I do, so better player than me. Should be a really interesting match. Hope you guys can see it, and I will let you go now. So thank you so much for watching, and remember that in all things, Xaereth prevails. Apparently, even when he ties.